This is Matt Russell, and welcome to the DailyFX Forum.
So here are the four pairs that I will be discussing this evening: the Euro Pound, the Aussie Kiwi, the Pound Swiss, and the Euro Swiss. So let's go ahead and pull up the charts. The first chart is the Euro Pound. If you recall, during the last report, I mentioned that I was targeting that 90 figure. Prices did reach that area right now, so I would go ahead and exit any positions initiated at this support line down here, which was a few reports prior to that. So moving forward now, what I do see is the possibility of an evening star reversal pattern. The way I like to view these setups in real time, and this is something that I like to see, you have a borderline doji candle, and this pattern would only be confirmed if prices do not take out that 90.39 high, which is that white line that you see right there. So with prices now about 90.19, I would go ahead maybe at this point, or maybe a few pips higher, but keep the risk incredibly tight. Again, any move above that high, above that above 90.39, so maybe even like 90.45 or 90.47, something like that, I would go ahead and exit the trade. And again, that would be on the short side. The next chart is the Aussie Kiwi, and if you recall, during the last report I mentioned that we might go ahead and exit positions at this line right here, but prices did actually blow through above that line. So right now I really don't see any favorable trade setups. Again, this was the long setup based on prices coming down here to that 24.39 area, so about 150 pip gain on this trade. So moving forward now, again, I really don't see anything favorable in terms of risk to reward and any major lines to set up. I mean, I was thinking about drawing this line here, just a simple support line. The only thing is that it's very steep, and you have this line here. So if we go ahead and put that like that, but again, when you have a very steep line like that, the odds of it being violated are very high. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove that line and look for the next opportunity. Speaking of which, the Pound Swiss, and if you recall during the last report, I mentioned when I was speaking about this candle right here, the initial trade I had was prices coming down. I believe it was the 69.02 area for the entry. Prices did initially rally, and that was this candle right here. They rallied a little bit, but then came back and closed back beneath the level. I mentioned during the initial trade that the stop would be near that 168 figure, but I mentioned during the report after prices closed beneath the line that we might move it up to 68.50, and that's what happened. So prices came down to 68.50, so there would have been a 50 pip loss on that trade. So moving forward now, and this would be the inverse of the Euro Pound chart, and so there could be a Morningstar reversal pattern here. So again, I wouldn't, either one or the other. These pairs are highly correlated, so that's something to keep in mind here moving forward. The same setup here in terms of using this low point, 67.16, that would be our stop, and 67.47, which is where prices are right now. And again, the Pound Swiss is a little more volatile, so you might use a 20 pip stop or 30 pip stop beneath the low of this candle here. The next chart is the Euro Swiss, and if you recall, during the past several reports I was mentioning that this previous support line that might act as resistance, and this line seems to be holding up fairly well. We have this long wick up here, but again, there's something else going on in this pair that I really just try to avoid personally. We could see that if you did initiate some short trades, you obviously would have been in the money, but again, these are very small moves we're talking about, maybe only 10, 20 pips or so. So again, personally, I'm on the sidelines, and something that I wanted to bring up is maybe a new chart tonight. So maybe go ahead, the Euro Aussie. And this is something that I just that kind of caught my eye a little bit. And one of the things I like is symmetry and patterns. So right now, moving forward, I like the possibility of a inverse head and shoulder pattern forming here. So I would, right now prices are about 62.17, so this might be another day or so, at least in terms of a setup. We could see a nice doji candle there that might indicate a move down to that line right here. And one of the things I love about head and shoulder patterns, and in this case inverse head and shoulder patterns, is the incredibly favorable risk reward ratios they can generate, because in a case like this, if the right shoulder is going to hold, it usually does so within a few pips. So we can keep the risk incredibly tight, and again, we have to always expect that we're going to lose with every trade that we enter. So if prices come down to, let's say, the 60-80 area, somewhere in there, we might look to enter with maybe a 30 or 40 pip stop. But again, if that line does hold, then obviously there could be a few hundred pips on the upside. So again, that's something I'm looking for, the possibility of an inverse head and shoulder pattern here on the Euro Odd. Again, my name is Matt Russell. Thanks for listening, and please stay tuned for a preview of the DailyFX
I want
forums.
to take this opportunity to formally welcome you all to the DailyFX forums. I want to go through the process of how I personally access the forums and how maybe you at home, if you want to access the forums in the future, might do so. The first thing you would do is go to www.dailyfx.com, and that will bring up, obviously, dailyfx.com. And usually there on the upper right hand corner, I'll go ahead and click on where it says forum, and that will bring up the first page of the forums. And this view, I personally don't use this view, but this view actually shows you the most recent posts on all the threads within the different sections and a little detail about those posts, so you can read through and see if there's something catches your interest. But personally, I go ahead and just click on forums and view them in the more traditional sense. Now, these are different threads within the forum. There's a section on education, such as DailyFX course instructor tips, which would be good for newer traders, and then for more advanced traders. And I just want to go ahead, personally, the way I use the forums is I would go through the individual threads, just looking for trade ideas, maybe looking at charts, looking at certain lines that maybe I didn't put up on my chart, but another trader might have put up on their chart. I tend to shy away from using direct trade recommendations from other forum members, but it helps me to sort of even out my analysis, make sure that I'm seeing things with the right mind in terms of I might be missing stuff that other traders can see, and that's my personal way of using the forum. Every trader is going to be a little bit different in how they use it. So if you want to ask questions, if you want to become an active participant of the members, you would have to go ahead and register. So that's what I'm going to go through now, is the registration process. So assuming you're brand new to the forums, or maybe you've been here a few times and you're not really sure how it works, so I just want to walk through again the registration process. This would be the front page where you would access, or the previous page. You'd have the same little box here on the left hand side. Obviously, my username and password are already filled out here, but assuming you're a new member, you would click on where it says register, and that will bring up the registration page. If you give me one moment here while my browser loads. And actually first we're going to have some terms of service and DailyFX forum rules. I do suggest reading through the forum rules. Obviously, profanity and spam and things like that are not allowed, but it also gives you insight on how to use the forum and how different traders can use it, in terms of their individual needs. So you would go down to the bottom there. You'd click on where it says I have read all the rules, and then you would go ahead to the register, the formal registration page, and that will bring up here. And you can go ahead and select the username, and how about we'll use 4x, and that name is already in use, so maybe add a few more x's there. Again, it really, your individual username is up to you, and you go ahead and fill in your password, your email address. Now, the most difficult aspect of registration for the DailyFX forums will be figuring out these letters in the box here. Now, I'm a semi-intelligent person, but I have a very difficult time figuring out which letters and numbers to use. Now, there is a reason for this madness. It helps with security, but I would suggest just going ahead and keep on clicking that refresh image until something comes through that you can actually identify and see. Then you can go ahead and enter your birthday, but you can decide whether or not to display that to other forum members. And then also, if you were referred by somebody, you can enter that information there. The time zone, that should default to your computer, but you should double check and make sure. And then you can opt in, and I would suggest opting in for these emails in terms if the administrators want to go ahead and send you some notices about the forum, and then you would complete registration. Now what happens is they would send you an email to the email address that you put up here, and that email will include a link, and all you would have to do is go ahead and click on that link, and that link will bring you inside the forum, and you would now be a member of the DailyFX forums. Again, this is Matt Russell. Thanks for listening.